Beautiful overlay. Look at that. I put that together in just like 2 seconds. All right. So the discussion that we're having is, I believe that in competitive Overwatch, in the competitive game mode, and in Overwatch League, I'm mainly talking about Overwatch League, there should be a professional setting that has one ban. Because there's only 30 heroes in the game right now, that each team should get one ban as the map is starting. So you can ban any character, and what it would do is ultimately create more diversity within the hero pool, within the game. Because I think one of the biggest things that the game lacks right now is that the game is defined so much by metas, and what happens is the metas make the games pretty much identical. And it just comes down to which team executes better, which is more of an FPS style of playing a game, but I think Overwatch is more of a strategy-based game. And with the problem with metas right now is, it is taking, because everyone's pretty much playing the same comps because of metas, because one comp is always going to be king in any situation. One team is going to find a comp that is better, and the only way to counter it is to play the comp. It's happened over the last 3 years of Overwatch, and nothing is going to debunk that. And something needs to come into the game that's going to change it, that adds more strategy to the game other than just play this comp. I think GOAT has made the problem more obvious of, you know, hey, we're going to play GOATs and that you have to play GOATs, otherwise you lose. What a ban would do is it would make it so that you can't play the critical heroes of GOATs.
Wobble wobble, motherfucker.
You would be able to ban... like, let's say you ban Xayah. That really inhibits GOATs in their ability to play GOATs. You can ban the Brig, but I don't think Briggs is important in GOATs anymore. I think the Xayah would be the big one that you would take out. You could also take out the Ryan and change it to Winston. But what it does is it gives teams the ability to stop the other team from doing something specific with only one hero. And then what it does is it forces the other team to adapt. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that is a good idea? I want to move away from the idea of this discussion talking about competitive mode. I don't care if it goes in competitive or not. I am talking professionally for the Overwatch League. I think it should be in competitive at some point, but I don't think you should implement it into competitive. I think it should be implemented into Overwatch League, see the success, or like even contenders. Just anything at the top level, show the success, and if it's successful and it's interesting, people will want to implement it in competitive. But I think if you just throw it into competitive, there's so many problems that can go with that. Do you think there's enough heroes in the game to support 2 bans? Yes. Because every hero within every role has at least 4 characters, I believe. So let's just say that there's 2-2-2. Like you can ban a main tank and he will have replacements. You can ban an off tank and there are replacements. I think off tank is probably the one where there's the least replacements, but I think that would be the most flexible one and it would be interesting. I think supports would make it really cool. Like you could ban Lucio and all of a sudden the enemy team has no mobility and then you have a strategy built around them not having a Lucio. Rainbow Six has a similar ban system and it's not in the regular competitive. Exactly, right? Like it doesn't have to be in competitive right away. How would Blizzard implement this system? It'd be easy. Like at the start of the thing, like in Overwatch League, obviously very easy to do. You can just do it through the match browser. But in the competitive mode, if we're talking about that, loading, Route 66, prepare your heroes. The first thing that happens is you have 15 seconds, 20 seconds to ban a hero. Everyone gets to choose a ban, and then it's banned, and then it'll tell you the 2 heroes that are banned at the start of the game. Boom, and then both teams choose, and the game plays as it usually would. Banning D.Va. Imagine if you could ban D.Va. See, people wouldn't always want to ban D.Va, so I would say D.Va's the most overpowered character in the game. Maybe someone has a strategy built around banning D.Va and then countering it, right? What if it's the same? So this has been my biggest problem with the idea is, so 2 heroes are going to get banned. Do you give Team 1 the first ban, Team 2 the second ban, and then Team 1 gets an advantage? So Team 1 is the team that chooses the map and the side, and then what that gives is Team 2 gets to ban the second hero. Because whoever bans the second hero has an advantage because they get to build this, they get to see what the first person banned and then ban themselves. Or do you have it a system where you You choose 3 heroes that you want to ban, 1, 2, 3 in your order. If you both choose one, then it goes to, that hero gets banned, and then it's a coin flip for the second one or something like that. But then all of a sudden you're adding RNG to the game and stuff like that. So I don't know how it's specifically implemented into the league, but I think you can find ways around it. Wouldn't one tricks get fucked? Here is my favorite thing about this banning system. It ruins one tricks. You want to play this game, you need to be able to play more than one hero. You just want to play one hero, have fun, go play quick play. We're playing Overwatch League level where people aren't one tricks. We are the top professional. What we're trying to do is we're trying to add diversity into the game and that kind of stuff. If you want to be let's say you have a player on an Overwatch League team that is only a Widow player and they're in the game and we go, we're going to ban Widow. That's their fault for having a Widow one trick on their team. People, this is a 30 hero game that is only expanding. You shouldn't be only able to play one fucking hero. And remember, I'm only talking about the Overwatch League level. I'm not talking about competitive, I'm not talking about your gold games, I'm not talking about quick play. I am just talking about the Overwatch League level. Because for the future, for the sake of Overwatch League to be successful, I think the game needs to change. I don't think it can stay in its same form and continue to grow. I don't think the games are interesting enough. I think the game is too meta developed, where the games just become the same thing based on whatever patch is happening, and the team that's strongest is the team that has the best players for that patch. But what adding a ban does is it adds diversity and adds like strategy to the game. I think it's so much better. Capri can play. I don't want to talk about Capri. Warning, this clip is now too long for Reddit. Good. The adaptation. Imagine that if you got to, at the start of every map, you got to see something. And what I think the whole thing about it that makes it really interesting is, let's say we're playing a 4-map series. Let's say we're in the current meta, okay? We're in the current meta of GOATs. What happens is the first team bans Brig and the other team bans Xayah. Can't play GOATs. So the first map, what happens is the one team just gets blown out of the water. They both play dive and one team gets blown out of the water and they just lose and they go, okay, we should try and play GOATs or an adaptation of GOATs. We shouldn't ban GOATs, let's ban Tracer. So what that does is it forces them for the next map that they can't play GOATs. So now they can play GOATs or they can play an adaptation of GOATs. So what happens is each game isn't going to be one set of meta. It could be the first map they decided to play GOATs. They banned away dive heroes and they played GOATs. The second map, you know, they didn't do well with GOATs. Let's start banning GOATs heroes and like see if we can force a dive game. And then all of a sudden, on top of that, you have map-specific bans. You know, we're playing Dorado. You want a lot of high ground abilities, but then you ban D.Va. D.Va has a lot of high ground mobility. What are you gonna do? Maybe let's play some like low ground strategy, like Bastion on the cart. They're not playing a D.Va. All of a sudden, we have these niche picks that could come out, like Bastion on the cart, that gets a lot more value. And then all of a sudden, these characters that are never picked because they're not meta developed become useful because the hero that gets banned is actually the counter to that niche hero. Change song. All right, yeah, I'll pause the music. Format series loser. What would happen is you could have it that the loser of the map gets the second choice hero ban. Play Imagine by Harry Grande. Someone can finally play Sim. What about if red team bans the hero for blue team, but red can still play it? No. I think it needs to be a situation where the hero that gets banned, neither team can play, because I think that's eliminating too many. That's allowing too many things. I think it should be exactly like it is in any game. If you ban that, like all other competitive games that have bans, if that hero is banned, you both can't play that hero. Would our team scrim with these? Yeah, well, we'd obviously scrim with it, and it'd be like that in the professional setting. So, and then what would happen is teams would have these understandings in scrims, like, hey, we wanna play strategies where these two heroes are banned. You interested in scrimming this? And yeah, okay, let's do that. Or and then like halfway through the scrim, okay, let's change the bans to these heroes, or let's do it where we're playing normal rules. Every map we get 2 bans and stuff. But wouldn't this target main tank players over a DPS? What do you mean? Like they're gonna ban a main tank? Okay, let's force them. They can't play Ryan anymore. oh no, they can't play Winston anymore. All of a sudden, main tanks have to find ways to have introduce other main tank heroes into the game, right? Like all main tanks have to be able to play Wrecking Ball now because Winston and Wrecking Ball have similar ideals, but all of a sudden people just can't play Winston all the time. And that's interesting, right? Can you set up a pug with this system? I don't think it'll be super interesting until it's done, like, it's executed well. Because if someone said they tried to do a ban system, someone did some pugs. No, Ryan, well, the thing is you can only ban two. So let's say you have a team that's like bans Ryan, and then this other team has this niche strat of like, we're going to ban Winston. So then all of a sudden you can only play Hammond or Thing. But then on top of that, let's say you ban two main tanks, all of a sudden you have value in a main tank that can all of a sudden play DPS, right? Like, let's ban Reinhardt and Orisa, and then we're going to play a quad DPS strategy. Might be cheesy, but at least it's interesting. And the only counters to it are main tanks, like Ryan or Orisa, where you can play like a heavy shield. But now the only choices you have are Winston and Orisa. Winston and what's the other main tank? I think Winston and Bolt. Wasn't really pro level, yeah. Big organizers could easily arrange that certain heroes don't get banned. Say why Self Ice Cream goes 24/7, they don't want to adapt, so they arrange that both teams play Torbjorn on stage. Let's say NYXL Scrim goes 24/7 and they don't want to adapt, so they arrange the teams bans Torbjorn on Strange, and please don't talk about our organization wouldn't do it. If the teams want to ban Torb and both play Goats, that's their prerogative, right? If, let's say, both teams don't want to ban a hero, like, let's say our team is going into the match and we want to play Goats. Let's ban Tracer, or let's ban Pharah, or let's ban Sombra, or let's ban Doomfist, the counters to Goats, right? That aren't Goats. Like, you don't need to have an honor. There's no honor of like, if we want to ban shit bans, then that's our right? Did I miss how this could possibly affect assault/attack players who have hero selection, which is almost larger than both support and tank combined? But that's the point. Like, there's always more DPS heroes, right? It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, sure, DPS characters have the most like variability and range, but they're not always going to be all viable. And like, so you can ban Genji, you can ban Tracer, you can ban Widow. Like, there are some important DPS bans that you can make that can't be replaced, right? Do you think when enough heroes around, we'll not let both teams play the same hero? Maybe, but that's like a long. Actually, no, because that would remove the ability of switching heroes. It's too weird how it functions. I don't know what you mean of like illegal. Like, if both teams, you're saying that both teams waste their bans. That why is that illegal? Why is that a bad thing? If they want to both waste their bans and they want to have a gentleman's agreement to just play Ghosts, and that's their right. It's not taking anything away from the game. If our team wants to ban Torb and the other team wants to ban Sim and we both play Ghosts, that's fine. But the thing is, it doesn't have to like break the game. Like, we're not saying this is just here to break Ghosts. This is here to make it so that there is an option of removing things that are broken, or removing things that the other team is incredibly strong at, and stuff like that. If they arrange it before the game, but wait, it's not affecting the game. I don't understand your logic though, man. How is it not a fair competitive game? They're both still playing under the same equal bans. They're both playing the game as it's fine. If you don't want to use your ban on anything useful, you don't have to use your ban on anything useful. If both teams don't want to use their bans on anything useful, then that's fine. How would this work in solo queue? I'm not really talking about solo queue setting, but I think it could work in competitive. Just give... it works in Dota like this, where each team, when it happens, the first phase that ever happens in the game is pick a hero that you want to ban. Each player in each team gets a ban, a vote, and they vote on a hero. And then the hero with the most votes gets banned for that team's side. And then if there's an equal vote, then it just randomizes one of the two. What about tiebreakers? What do you mean? We're talking about Overwatch League and contenders mainly. We're not talking about competitive. It could probably get implemented into competitive if we needed it to, but like as I'm saying, the main thing at point of this is to just be Overwatch League level. On COP maps, do you ban once for the entire map or every single stage? No, it'd be once for the entire map. And that'd be interesting, right? Like imagine if because it might not always apply to each map, but you can just ban do a mass ban over the 3 stages. It'd be fine. The point is not to have this like crazy system where it just like breaks the game. It's to stop metas. It's to stop this situation right now where the game is controlled by one singular comp that is just too good and everyone ends up playing it. You've seen it every time. Dive, Goats, Beyblade, Genjis, fucking everything. What happens when teams ban Widow on Ilios, Ruins vs NYXL, and suddenly players like Plan are useless and most likely to be cut from the org? You have a player that can only play one character? Like, that's not true. Pine can play other characters, but that is a flaw, and I think that is what needs to be removed from the game. You shouldn't have a player that can only play one thing. And if you want to put that player in who has like one signature strong hero, you're going in with the risk of that character getting banned. And I think that makes the game more diverse and more interesting. And that's why I think this system is good, is I think it inherently removes one-tricks from the game. No, I don't think Pine is one trick. He's saying Pine is a one trick. I think Pine can play lots of characters. I think Pine's actually a very solid player, but people think he's a Widow one trick. Widow's definitely his strongest character, but have you seen his McCree? It's also nutty. He's actually very good at hit scan. So. How many bans would each team get? Only one. I think while there's only 30 heroes in the game, you can only get one ban. I think that's enough to create a problem, but I think as the hero, I think if it got to 40, maybe a bit 40 plus, you could probably do 2, but there needs to be enough hero within each role that like you can't ban a whole category. But even if you could ban a whole category, I think it'd be interesting. Imagine if you banned all the main tanks, or you banned all the supports. Fucking get me on Tracer, boys. You'd get the hero. What would happen is, I think it would be, everyone knows the map, everyone knows the starting lineups, everyone gets to ban the hero. I wouldn't watch with no sports, as I said. That's a stupid extreme case. I'm just worried this would diversify the meta so much. It would be extremely difficult for pros to scrim and prepare strats, which would add to burnout and stress. But what I think is it creates the game of adaptability and diversity of the players, right? Like all the players all of a sudden have to learn on the fly, and everything becomes like fair game. And I think the skill cap of the game goes from like, okay, so here's the skill cap of the game right now, where we're learning how to play Goats, and this is how good. You add it that you all of a sudden a hero that you've been practicing and can't get a thing goes to here, because all of a sudden all the players need to have more hero pools, more skill, understand the meta better, understand differences and that kind of stuff. It makes the game so much harder to be better at. And I think that is what the game is struggling at right now, is like the game is won and lost on such like weird, on the metas. Like the metas are determined by the developers, and then the teams that win do it. You can look at that throughout the entire Season 1 of Overwatch League. Dive, NYXL was one of the best dive teams in the world, okay? We can all agree on that. Stage 3, Sombra meta became a really good thing, and Sombra determined everything. Hey, guess what? Boston has a really good dive team. They fucking crushed Stage 3. Brig comes into Stage 4. We were really good at Stage 4 with Brig, and we won the league. And then we go into the last in the playoffs, and Hanzo becomes top meta, and all of a sudden London goes from being like average over the last like little bit and becomes this like world-class team. So like metas are causing teams to win, which shouldn't be the case, in my opinion. Yeah, exactly. Forcing pro players to be adaptable and have a better understanding of the game is better for everybody, right? You're making the game harder. That is why Dota is still respected as one of the hardest games of all times, because they get 5 picks and 5 bans. Each team gets 5 picks and 5 bans. and there's 150 heroes. They all need to know how to play all those heroes, like most of their heroes, every hero in their role. The game changes every time thing, and that's what makes it exciting, because no game of Dota is ever the same. And that is why the game has lived on the test of time and is one of the oldest and biggest esports games of all time, because of how complex it is. But what if every team bans the main source of goats, e.g. Ryan, then they'll pick the second best comp, and that will be meta. Okay, so here's what happens. That's a good question. So goats is meta. Everyone bans Ryan. No one wants to play goats anymore because of Ryan. Let's just say that. Both teams go out for the first map, and then, oh shit, it didn't work out for team one. Okay, this time team one's not going to ban goats away. They're going to play something. They're going to want to play goats, and then all of a sudden you have a different map with different comps, and then all of a sudden teams have different levels of playing field, and then all of a sudden teams have to decide if they want to ban what is meta and what is really strong right now, i.e. Brig in the most recent meta, or do they ban out the character that the other team's really good at and that allows them to play the comp that they beat them with. So you're creating this like strategy of like, do we ban what we know we just lost with, or do we ban something that's different and something that's new, and that makes each game different. And that gives the choice of every team, like, the possible opportunities that each team gets increases. Yeah, each team chooses one hero to ban. How do you deal with burnout? It already exists. Alright. The conversation of burnout is a completely different one. But if a hero gets banned like 70% of the time, what then? Then that hero gets banned 70% of the time. That's what happens in Dota. There's usually a character that's super good that everyone bans through default. One team bans on default. But then sometimes teams have to let it through because they can't win without that hero. And stuff like that. It's not a bad thing if a hero gets banned 70% of the time. If anything, that's source for Blizzard to look at and go, hey, this hero character got banned 70% of the time. Why is this? Does this need to change? And then the meta shifts like built based on that, but the meta doesn't completely crumble because of a hero balance change, because teams have the ability to ban it. It's not because of the ban system Dota's been since their balancing has been incredibly good, like crazy good. Many parameters of their balance. No, but their balance is good, right? But they've fucked up a ton of times. Look at IO. Look at, I don't know, like I actually super out of them, but I know IO was like super broken. I know they've had like a bunch of like broken characters like throughout time, but the fact that they have bans makes it so that every team doesn't just always pick that hero, which is what the problem with Overwatch is with Brig. As a prime example of Brig was just so good. Imagine if teams could ban it. Teams would have banned it because people didn't want it. There would have been like an honor ban of like, we should ban Brig this game. Medusa got banned 80% of the time in 120. Exactly. Like, I think Overwatch does a very good job of balancing the game. People complain because what happens is the professionals create a meta where this one character becomes unbeatable. But that's what happens in any competitive game. When you have
wobble wobble,
when
motherfucker.
you have 30 moving parts, it's impossible to make it balanced and have one thing that's not overtuned. And that's what a balance does. And it breaks the ideas of the metas. There's always going to be some, even with the banning system, there is going to be a meta. There is going to be a consistency of what is played, but it adds variability to each game, and it gives teams the opportunity to adjust the game to play in the style that they want to play, but it also gives the other team the equal opportunity. Is the idea coming that one team bans a hero and neither team can play? Or do both teams have to? No. Each team gets one different ban, so 2 heroes will be banned both times. As I said, I don't have a perfect way of how it would work and how each hero is chosen, but this is just like spitballing, right? What do you think would happen with private public profiles with hero bans? This would incentivize. You guys are thinking. I think you guys are thinking too many steps ahead. I think, like, remember, this is just core concept of like, would this function in the Overwatch League? Is this good for the Overwatch League? That is like purely what I'm talking about, and like contenders and stuff like that. If it is successful at that, if we believe it could be successful and implemented well, then you can start talking about how would it function within competitive. Instead of ban, they could only leave a certain number of available characters, and it's random. No, you don't. You don't want random. You don't want randomness in the game. Adding random to a professional game is bad. There should never be randomness. It should always be both teams have an equal control over winning the game. What does HA stand for? Half alive. It's a band. What about subs during the match? What do you mean subs during the match? This is every map. Every map you get new hero bans. So, means that your new players will be coming in each hero ban, each time. So you get the map, you get the. So first thing you know, you get the map, and then you get to choose your subs, and then you choose your bans. There's also Overwatch team balances for the majority of the players and not the top and the ladder. Take a hard look at how bad Widowmaker was considered earlier. She was considered trolling if you picked her, similar to 12 Sim. What do you mean? Widow has always been a top tier pick. Let me tell you the story of how Widowmaker functions. They've done a very good job of balancing it from the top tier. As someone who's been a part of the top tier for the last 3 years, they've done a very good job of balancing it. Like, very, very good job. The biggest problems come in when they introduce new heroes. But Widowmaker was broken at the start of the game because you could jump shot super easily. And then she became bad for a portion of time because they removed it. So she couldn't move and shoot at the same time, like, in a way, like you could barely even jump shot. So what they did is they dialed that back. But Widow's always been a useful pick, like, throughout the game. It was only super bad during the prime time of dive because Widow just doesn't counter dive. She only came back once Mercy came. Would you like hero bans for each round or map? Each map, not round. How do you determine who gets first ban? That's the question mark. How do you what I would say is the team that chooses the map gets the first ban. So the team that gets the second ban, the team that has the second ban always gets the advantage, right? So the team that chooses the map gets the first ban, and the team that doesn't gets the second. I'd argue we're broken with 8-second grapple. Yeah, exactly. Like, Widow's gone through some, like, but the thing is, like, yeah, Widow was broken for a bit there, 100%. But then they balanced it, right? Like, Widow's in a good spot. Like, I think Blizzard have not left something unchecked for an incredibly long time. And I'm sure they couldn't have expected it to happen because it was only super broken in the top level of gameplay because people just got really fucking good at it. I think the first, see the map loading screen, then a ban phase of 30 seconds, then a pick. Yeah, that's what I mean, Kev. But I'm talking about the Overwatch League level. Of how it would function. In competitive, 100%, if you were to implement it that way, the map loads, you choose the bans, then the hero select screen, and then the game plays. Isn't the big issue that the current lineups are always paired? Ryan Zaya, Monkey Diva thing. You still don't get a lot of variety because, yeah, but that's what I mean. Instead of seeing Ryan Zaya every game, like you do right now because of GOATs, all of a sudden you ban Ryan, you can't play Ryan Zaya, so therefore teams have to play Orisa Hog. And then the next map, you ban Orisa because the other team was better at Orisa Hog than you, so therefore you have to play Ryan Zaya. So what happens is teams need to have variability and diversity in the team, and that's what we're trying to accomplish, right? They're going to still stay within pairs because heroes are still going to synergize well together, but you're not going to see the same pair for 3 months because that's what the meta is. What's your opinion on Doom right now? I don't think it's very good. Yeah, I'm talking about Overwatch League, guys. Like, if you're just joining recently, I'm talking about Overwatch League. I'm trying to get it function. Whether or not it could function in competitive, I think it could, but that's not the question I'm asking right now. Get the banner changed. All right, one second. We did a chat. Wait. Here we go. Wait. We're upgrading. Boom. Ah, fuck! Undo! Too big! Oh, no. Alright, then we're gonna have to, this isn't working. Chat, just give me a minute. Changed my mind. I had this great idea. We did a chat. We got there. Incompetitive. Ah, fuck! The banner's wrong. in professional Overwatch. I'm starting to understand why everyone thought I was talking about competitive. Why didn't anyone tell me? I did smile. In Season 1 in the league, had a big problem because there was a big gap in the league and what I call player base because of the league often played on different patches. This gap, which I mentioned, would only get bigger if hero bans are introduced. What do you mean? But the problem's not getting solved because patches are still going to happen and there's going to be discrepancy in team. What's going to happen with this ban system is teams are going to get better overall and get more diversified, which will then create this like difference in games with and the best teams will rise up because they'll be the most diverse and they have the best like flexibility in their roster. What's happening right now is there's this huge switch in how good teams are between stages because of patches, and I think that is a bad part of the game. And I think the hero bans will reconcile that. Do you think that the level will decrease in terms of comp optimization? Because you can't be good at 3 or 4 constants? Yeah, okay, so Captain Planet said this. Don't you think it's better to have diversification? Isn't it better to have perfection of one thing than average of diversification? I think it's much better to have average diversification because what that means is the teams that are the best at diversifying, because you don't want to see a team perfect perfect goats. You don't want to see it, right? Like no one wants to see one comp get played over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and then be like, yeah, those guys are the best at that. Yeah, it's sure that's a good feat to be the best at it. But then what happens is a meta changes and then they suck because they can't play the next meta. Like that's not good in terms of the longevity of the game. Adaptability is a much more impressive feat than perfection, in my opinion. Should do it in preseason. It's definitely not going to be in for season 2. Absolutely not. This is like season 3 onwards, if that. If this is going to go through, it needs to go through a lot of testing and a lot of agreement and all that kind of stuff. And this is just me talking to talking to you guys, right? Like this isn't even like, as far as I'm aware, this isn't even a conversation that's being had. That's what I'm hoping this sort of sparks, is like some more conversation, because I talked about this a few weeks ago, but then Flame reminded me today. When they remove team specialization on certain maps, diversification means teams have more generic play strategies, but there will also be niche strats, right? Like this team bans, so I brought this one up before, this team bans D.Va, okay, we can actually play a Bastion pirate ship. And then all of a sudden you have this weird quirky strat that's coming in for this stuff. Like, the generic strategy will be there, but it will always have a twist. And the twist is what makes games interesting. It will always be different. Every game will be different, and that's what will make the game better, because you're not always watching the exact same thing. Because, as I said, Overwatch is a strategy game. It's not a FPS game, which is all about perfection, like CSGO, all those kind of games. It's all about how well you can aim and how well you can execute, and there is like some strategy in there, right? But Overwatch is a purely strategy game with it, like Dota, in my opinion, of here's the adaptability and that kind of stuff, just in a much smaller scale. But I think it should grow into a game like Dota that has FPS. Alright, I have to Ken, thank you very much for the 14 months. Triforce total with the 8 months playing on my new computer. I think I'm starting to start Australian mobile so much. Much love, Triforce. And Simia with a 6-month resub, half year. I'm halfway through my true form. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Make a scenario with the ban system. One in capturing, then one in payload. What, so, like, you talk about, like, in 2CP? Alright, so let me give you the scenario of what I'm talking about. We are playing against New York Excelsior. Valiant is playing against New York Excelsior. We are playing Dorado. Okay? We, as a team, ban out Zenyatta. So, therefore, Jono can't play Zen, but he'll probably play Ana. Okay, so that's like a small variation. And they're going to ban D.Va. So, we can't play space on D.Va. So all of a sudden we have to play more of a Ryan's Eye comp and they have to play. They can play an Ana comp. So what this creates is this small difference in they probably can't play. They can't play any form of goats. They can play an adaptation of goats, but neither team can play a diva either. So you can't really play goats. So maybe we can play a team can play a weird variation of dive with Ana Lucio, or maybe one team can play Ryan Zaya, or maybe both teams will play Ryan Zaya, and we'll play like an Ana Lucio Ryan Zaya with a weird DPS comp. But already, like, there's endless opportunities of what you could accomplish. Strategies can be changed. It doesn't break the overall game. The basic strategy is probably still there. Everyone's going to understand how to play those classes. But what it does is it removes the opportunity for either team to just play goats, or play this like weird strategy of like just playing the same thing over and over again, or Hammond Winston dive, or anything, right? Like, or you can put Hog in the goats. You can do that, but like that's what I'm sort of saying is it creates this interesting thing of people are going to have to make small changes to comps, or they're going to have to think of something different, and it's going to be different every map, every game, every matchup. Because how many teams are going to ban Zen? Are people going to ban Zen? Look, it's going to be interesting to see those statistics. Against NYXL, Zen is banned 60% of the time. When Zen is banned, NYXL has a 40% winner chance of winning. When Zen is unbanned for those other 40%, NYXL have a 70% chance of winning. All of a sudden, you have these statistics that make the game more interesting, and then you get to look at and identify the patterns that teamers are using. And like, from Valiant's example, they like to play Izayaki on Zen. They think he can match up against Jonak. So they don't like to ban the Zen against them, but what they do like to ban against them is the Lucio. They think Anamo's fucking nuts on Lucio, and they think that he controls too much of the game when he's on Lucio, so they ban Lucio away, and it forces them to play an Ana Zen, which is a lot slower to the pace that they want to play. And the complexity just gets deeper, right? Think about like how far you can go into the interesting statistics of that and what each team decides to do. Bans do apply to both sides. And that's what I mean by if we ban Zen, we can't play. If we ban Jonak Zen, we can't play Zen ourselves. So we need to play Aaron ourselves. And then all of a sudden you have every player all of a sudden needs to be much better at their role because they need to be able to play everything. As a main support player, if bans came into the thing, I need to be able to play Ana and Zen. I need to be able to have that adaptability. Everyone needs to be able to play almost every character within their role because otherwise it's going to be hard. So all of a sudden players are performing at a higher level than they are currently. And you don't have these players that are stuck playing Diva for a year. You know, people have been playing the same hero for a year, and it's just like, well, you know, it'd be better for the game if everyone had to like be better at multiple things. When they remove the depth and level of prep work, the stuff and players have to put a counter outplay a team. What do you mean? I just gave you a prime example of why it's better. Why prep for shutting down Jonak and Sabielby when you can just ban Tracer and Zen? Because you ban Tracer and Zen, and then you have Jonak and Sabielby who are very good at other classes, and you have to ask yourself, you don't get two bans either. Do you want to ban Jonak Zen or Sabielby's Tracer? You don't get both. So you got to pick your poison, and all of a sudden the strategy has to be built, which makes it more complex of, hey, we're going to have to let Sabielby's Tracer through. He's going to try and do work against us, but we don't have Jonak on Zen, so how do we want to adjust this? Lucier having 90% is good for the game, though? Why? 90% pick for the game? Like, he has his niche strategy, but imagine how interesting it would be if you have the ability to remove that strategy from the game and create your own playstyle around taking that out of the game. I don't really, like, I think if it was in the pro scene, I think it'd be good for the ladder, but I think that's a completely different beast that you're trying to tackle. I think for right now, you need to tackle the league. Being better one-trick hero is good for viewer. Oh, that guy good on Zen. Why is he playing Ana? Fuck this game. I think that logic is completely wrong. In a game where there's 30 heroes in a game, and this one guy only plays one character all the time, yeah, I would say fuck this game as well. in... Thank you. Sorry, the thing has taken a lot of changes. Bring back Mercy. Imagine that. Imagine when Mercy became imbusted. You remember when everyone was complaining this game is so shit because Mercy's in the game. She's so broken. Imagine if teams had the ability to just be like, no, we're just gonna ban her. And because of how busted Mercy was, everyone would have banned her. She would have been 100%. She would have had like a 90% ban rate, and the game wouldn't have been busted because Mercy was broken. And then Blizzard would have fixed it, and then all of a sudden you don't have to ban Mercy anymore. And there's always going to be one thing like that. And people always say, can't teams just honor not play Brig? Well, here's a solution to the problem. Doesn't this stop teams from being able to use secret interesting stats like LA Gladiators merry-go-round on King? No, it makes it better, right? Because all of a sudden, imagine if Gladiators had the merry-go-round idea, right? But they can do that, and they know what the counter is. They can't do this merry-go-round if they play Tracer. Or if they play, I don't know what it is. Maybe Hanzo, because he was spotter arrow or something, whatever. They go, we're going to ban this so we can execute this niche strat. Wouldn't it create a top 7 instead of a top 6 since people would gravitate towards the next best hero? Wouldn't that eventually... No. See, people... That was in the Reddit thread as well. I don't get it. Because you can't replace Xayah with a character and it'd be perfectly fine. Right? Or imagine if first team bans Xayah and everyone goes, oh, that's fine, we'll just put this character in the thing. And then the other team goes, no, we're going to ban that as well. So you can't feel that. Like, there's going to be a lot more, like, mind games into it rather than just like, well, we're going to play Goats. You ban Xayah? Okay, we're going to play Hog with it. Oh, they banned Hog? Well, fuck. Like, let's play a DPS character. And then all of a sudden you have the adaptability, right? Like, and every team is not the same. Every team is not just going to want to have the 7 characters. And teams aren't just going to keep banning it. Like, what it does is if you're a bottom tier team and you're playing a top tier team, you don't want to play the meta that everyone else is playing. So you're going to, like, intentionally ban something that is going to tilt them away from being able to do what they do. Maybe you're not always going to be able to stop them from doing the strategy, and maybe the meta is so broken that everyone's always going to play the same 9 heroes. But what the banning does is it gives the meta more wiggle room to change. Because that's not, Viselectra, that's not how a competitive professional level game works. You don't let the viewers decide. That's adding RNG to the game again. Watching specialized superstars pop off like Jonex and BLB on Tracer, Pine on McCree. Yeah, but you guys are focused on too much of one person only being good at one thing. Guess what? Jonex really fucking good at Ana. He can pop off on Ana and he can create the same highlight reels on Ana. Sabiolbi is an incredibly good Widowmaker in the end, and he can play some other things, and people are going to have to pop off on multiple heroes. People don't just need to be one tricks and only pop off on one character, and that's what's going to make the game great. Is it's not just going to be, yeah, Jonak just killed everyone on Zen for a year, and they won. It was good. It was great. It'll be, yeah, Jonak had this amazing 3 hero pool that teams couldn't ban out. He could always play something that he was comfortable with, and that's what makes him the best player in the world, is that he can play all 3 at a world-class level. Here's a highlight clip of him sleeping a Nano-Bladed Genji. Here's him of killing 4 people on Zen. Here's him, wait, fuck, what's another support character? Killing 8 people on Mercy. You know, like, people should have diversibility, and if you think that it is good for the game that one person is only signature for one hero, and that they can play that, like, pretty much all the time, then I don't understand how you... If you understand the core concept of what Overwatch is meant to be, which is a game that has massive diversibility, and is supposed to change, and everyone's not supposed to play the same thing all the time when there's 30 heroes in a game. Stop now, we're talking Jonak. Jonak's just a very easy example. That's why I'm talking about Jonak. Because everyone knows who Jonak is. And everyone understands, like, the concept of Zen and stuff like that. Think that player switch should be after the ban? No, because the point should be you should have... Players should not be one tricks. That is like what I'm trying to get across here. Players should not be one tricks. So let's say Pine isn't a one trick widow, but let's say he was. He should not be in the Overwatch League. And if you do want to put him in, then you should have him as a thing. He should have at least 2 characters that he can play at the professional level, which he does. He's a very good player. But there should not be players that can only play one thing in the game. In a 30 hero game, people should be able to play more than one hero. That's why I like this system, because it breaks one tricks. One tricks are a problem with the game. And maybe it won't fix competitive because we don't introduce it into competitive, but sure as hell should not be one tricks in Overwatch League. Yeah, blind bans, yeah, that's it. I don't understand. I don't know how the bans function. I still think it should be the team that doesn't get to pick the map gets the second ban. But maybe that's... I don't know. Or maybe the team that lost the last map gets the ban and the first time is a coin flip. I don't know. Two blind bans, then flip a coin for first choice. So like blind ban, and then if they're not the same, it's a coin flip for which team gets the second ban. That could be good. Adds a little bit of RNG, but it's like... It could work. I don't know. As I said, I don't have a perfect solution of how to implement the bans without giving one team an advantage of the second ban, because the second ban is a lot stronger than the first ban. Because it allows you to dictate the flow of, like, say, like one team bans Xayah, and then you have the control of, like, well, how far do we want to take this? Do we want to ban D.Va? And then, like, there's, like, no off tanks. And then it forces teams to play, like, an Orisa Hog and stuff like that. Played League? No, I play Overwatch. I played Dota. I play Overwatch. Yeah, who would have guessed? If Blizzard doesn't do serious change, Overwatch will collapse and people will be less interested in the game. It's so frustrating right now. That's what I started this with. I think the longevity of Overwatch League isn't there unless the game changes, because I think the game being controlled by metas is bad for the game, and I think it makes the game uninteresting. And that is why I think the viewership dips so much, is because you're essentially in each stage you're essentially watching the same game between the same teams, between playing the same heroes over and over and over again, and I think that's bad for the game. What about just one ban per category? No, I think the variability of the randomness of the category is good, and that's 3 bans. How do you choose that? Then are you adding 6 bans? You can't have 6 bans when there's only 30 characters. Well, we're talking about NYXL extremely flexible and powerful team. What happens when we turn to Mayhem on Uprising? Well, then that's what I mean. You have to pick up players that are flexible. And there are a ton of players that are flexible and can have these crazy big hero pools. Players should not be able to only play... Players should not be inflexible in the Overwatch League, and that is my point. And I think it makes it a lot better if players don't play the same thing over and over and over again. Like, I played Mercy for, I'm going to say, 80% of Season 1. Oh, maybe less. When I was on Valiant, 90%. And when I was on Dallas, like, 60% because I was playing Zen at that time. But, like, you know, Main Tank had a ton of variability, and I think that was really interesting. I think DPS went through some switches at times, and I think that you sort of saw the storylines there. But, like, off tanks and support and the Zen players didn't really go through pretty much any changes. No, I mean there can only be 1 ban per category in the map. So 2 off tanks. That's an interesting ruling. That makes the banning more complex. But I kind of like the idea of being able to ban 2 of the same category. Because I think that makes it interesting, right? It adds more variability. Imagine if you ban, like, what's a really good one? Imagine if you ban, like, Ryan and Orisa. All of a sudden you force the tanks to play dive heroes and dive tanks and stuff like that. So, and it creates this interesting thing. Just ban Ryan and Winston, yeah, and then you have to play an Orisa or a Bull, right? And I think that's good for the game, right? If these teams have the ability to stack a category, What's so bad about teams being forced to play a Winston or a Ball if you ban like Ryan Winston, but like Ryan Arista and stuff like that? Do we get top 500? I think we're like one game away. We're just talking. Main tanks have specific uses on each map. Yeah, but now all of a sudden, you're thinking of the game as it is now. What banning does is it adds another element where each map doesn't just have this one specific meta. We're not playing, Koth where each round, each team plays, this is always a dive one. People always play Pharaoh here. Like, you're changing the way the game is played every time, and that is what this system is meant to implement. Wouldn't the 2x same carry be more lenient to DPS? I think you wouldn't see many DPS banned in this system. But, like, you can ban Tracer, but there's not much that can replace Tracer, right? So you would never ban a McCree because it can be replaced by Soldier. You'd never replace a... actually, maybe that's the only two, like, major ones. Right? Like, every other DPS has a niche pick. And they are useful in some ones. Imagine if we... so think about it like Junkertown, right? All of a sudden you can ban Bastion. People can't play Bastion anymore on Junkertown. All of a sudden a different strategy has to be thought of and changed every time you think. Sometimes people are going to let Bastion through, so people are going to play Bastion on Junkertown, but sometimes they can't. So all of a sudden, every time we play Junkertown, we're not seeing the same meta of, this team's playing Pirate Ship, this team's going to try and beat Pirate Ship. Who's the Tracer replace? There isn't one, and that's what's good. The bans would all become the same. Why? Why are all the bans going to become the same? For that exact example, everyone bans Junkertown on Junkertown. Everyone bans Bastion on Junkertown. What happens if both teams don't want to ban Bastion on Junkertown? All of a sudden, everyone's not banning the same thing, and a different strategy gets involved. What happens if on Junkertown I want to ban Hog instead because Hog always does so much work? So all of a sudden we can't play the Hog, but we can have the Bastion. Some team would figure out the best bans, but then all of a sudden the bans become predictable, and each team saw. So, I saw last time NYXL banned Bastion on Junkertown because they don't want to play the Bastion on Junkertown. And their counter is they don't play Bastion, but what they do is they do this strategy. I saw that last time. Last time they played Orisa Hog. This time I'm going to ban Hog, and they can't play the Orisa Hog, so they're forced to play Bastion. So now there's only two strategies, but what happens if it goes deeper and one team goes, okay, actually, we're going to let the Bastion through because we know how to play dive, so we're going to ban Brig. So all of a sudden this team tries to play Bastion, but we've countered the counter of Brig, so we're going to play dive against the Bastion, and now their Bastion strat doesn't work. And the counter to our dive is not there anymore, so now they need to think deeper. You remove two supporters, Zen and Lucio, none of eyes, but that's interesting, right? All of a sudden, if you ban Zen and Lucio, that's a weird fucking situation that you have to run into, and I think that's interesting, right? Because what's happened is the second team has intentionally banned a supporter, the second support, and they have a strategy for it, which is interesting, right? So now they go, they just banned both support ults. They're gonna play some form of dive with like these big winning ults. Like Nanovisor. How do we beat that? Alright, let's play Ana Moira with a quad tank. Because they're going to try and play this heavy dive and go for these ones. But what happens if we make it so that every character just can't die to this dive strategy? And then all of a sudden the other team's like, well, now they're playing a quad tank against the other thing. So the game is already changing and you don't have a meta. Yeah, sure, there's going to be some stupid shit and some crazy strategies come out, but I think that's interesting. And I think that's good for the game. Yo, Bruco, thank you for the 20 bits. What instead of a blanket ban, one team gets a defense ban, the other team... No, I don't like... I think the blanket ban is better. I think it makes... If you start adding these, like, sided bans and, like, one team gets to... You can ban their hero, but you get to play it. I think it gets too messy. I think it's going to get way too confusing. I think it's super easy for the game to just be like... For them to be like... In your UI, you have, like... The characters that everyone's playing, you have the old tracks, and then you can have, like, in a corner, like, the bans. Like, these two heroes are banned. So that's why neither team are playing these heroes. But if you have it, like, blue team bans this character and this character, red team bans this character and this character, and then you're like, but which team's red team, and why are they doing it? It just gets too hard. The theory craft being huge, and that's the thing. The game becomes the game becomes diverse and the game becomes harder and the game becomes strategy involved, which I think Overwatch severely lacks. For a game that has 30 heroes, there is no strategy involved for the most part, other than how to execute with the current things that you have. I don't think hero switching is a big enough part of the game right now, and I think it should be, and I think bans create that. DPS will 100% be meta, and that's what people want, right? But what? And then you say like, what DPS? People will just start banning Tracer. If DPS start becoming meta and everyone just starts playing Tracer, well then teams will start banning Tracer. Teams will start thinking of ways that you can counter. If you ban this one character, they can't play this heavy DPS lineup. Like, let's say you play this heavy DPS, and what happens is the Winston is amazing at shutting it down.
Wobble,
right?
motherfucker.
Like, all of a sudden you start banning Winston or Wrecking Ball and stuff like that. Carapo, thank you very much for the Prime sub. And yeah, that as Jericho said, the game is only going to get more heroes. The hero pool is only going to expand, which is going to make the banning system better and better and better. And as you get more heroes into the game, you can increase the number of bans, which increases the sophistication of the game, and all of a sudden has less impact of like banning one specific thing, because there'll be characters that do similar roles. And that's what makes Dota great, is there's 150 heroes. 10 of them are banned out of the game, but you know, you have 140 other to choose for that have like some characters have similarity, some characters have niche, all that kind of stuff. This wasn't an issue before Goats and Brig. What do you mean? We played Dive for a year. We played Tracer Genji for an entire year. This is a huge problem before Goats Brig. It was a problem when Mercy came into the game and Mercy was broken, so everyone had to play Mercy. It was around back in Beyblade when Nano Reaper was like the best thing ever. Imagine if you could have banned the Reaper out. And that would have one team bans Reaper, one team bans Genji. Fuck it. We're nanoing Winstons now. We're nanoing Ryans. All of a sudden you have these new levels of sophistication of teams having to adjust, other than just doing one thing over and over and over again. Teams have to like slightly adjust how they play the game every time. It only becomes a problem when balance is bad. You cannot, when you have 30 plus heroes, balance cannot be perfect. You cannot change one thing without adding a bigger problem in another spot. Like, think about Brig coming into the meta. She was there to counter Dive. But what she did inadvertently is she buffed tanks, because she did so much AoE healing and AoE armor that it buffed tanks. Who, when Brig was introduced, would have been like, that is going to be a fucking triple tank meta? No one, because you can't see these things coming from a mile away. Because if you change one aspect, when you have 30 different moving parts, it's going to do something. It's going to break something along the way. And that is what bans are there to implement, is it's to stop things from just breaking down completely and having these strict metas like we do right now. One change has 29 consequences, exactly. This could increase the possibilities for team comps and strategies. Exactly. It's only adding a ban system makes the game cap higher, significantly higher at how good teams and players can get. Yeah, like exactly. If you think Goats is the only bad meta we've ever had, then you haven't been around. I've been around for 3 years. I've seen some shit. Alright, so let's go back to a different time, actually. Let's go back 3 years ago, when Overwatch was in beta. The Blizzard developers were like, no, we're not going to add a hero limit of 1. We're not. We think that every player should be able to play whatever hero they want all the time, and if you want to run 6 Winstons, you can run 6 Winstons. So what we did is teams on King's Row, if they full held first point, they would run 6 Winstons. Because how do you counter 6 Winstons off of the first point defense? You can't. So what happened is Blizzard were like, no, we're not going to do this. And then there became the 6 Diva stall on 2CP, where one Diva would run onto the point. As soon as they got demexed, the next Diva would go onto the point. As soon as they got demexed, the next Diva would go on a point. As soon as they got demexed, the next Diva would go on a point. And by the time you got to the 6th Diva, the first Diva had respawned and would go back to the point. It was literally the opposite of a C9. So what happened is the game developers were like, alright, we're in an impasse. This needs to be done. And they ended up going to one hero limit, which was good for the game. And I think this is another thing that needs to happen for the game to be better. And There's been like talk about it in the past, but I don't think there've been enough heroes and adaptability in the game. But I think after seeing the game at Overwatch League the first season and seeing the problems, I think bans solve a lot of those problems. So I'm hoping that this sort of goes on in the future and it gets fixed. And it gets implemented in some way. Or at least another solution is found. 2 Winstons, 2 Traces, 2 Lucios on Koth? No. Let's go back to when Symmetra used to give 50 shields. Her E was she just gave a character 50 shields. If she saw them when she was alive, she pressed E on them, they got 50 shields. So what you would do is you'd run 2 Traces, you'd give them 50 shields. You'd play 2 Zens, and the Zens would put healing orbs on the Traces. But the healing orbs would never disappear when they were behind walls, because once you put an orb on someone back in the day on Zen, that Tracer would have it permanently. So what you would do is you'd have a Tracer with 200 health and a permanent healing orb. And then you would also play a Lucio who would play with the 2 Zens and the Symmetra. And the 4 players of the Lucio, 2 Zens, and a Symmetra would run around as a 4-man group, and the 2 Traces would try and kill everyone else. That is what we have played in the past. The game was broken and has seen a lot of dark times. But the most important thing is that the game keeps growing. I think this is another impasse. Do you think Overwatch would be interesting with asymmetric pick like MOBAs? Where once one team picks a hero? No, the game needs to be able to... Because there is hero changing within the game while the game is playing, you can't have asymmetric picks. There should be a test of hero banning before everyone makes up if they hate it or without being tried. People are stubborn, but how do you implement it? And how do you... Because it'd be very hard to see its true effectiveness unless you introduced it at the professional level. But how do you introduce it at the professional level without pretty much hard committing to it? Blizzard would have to like put in a rule where it's like, we're gonna try this, and it causes a problem of like a huge shift into how everything would work. Making the game cap higher will end in very, very low view numbers. It might not be a big deal for pretty much everyone else, but the majority of the viewers don't want complexity. They want it to be easy and understandable because they're kind of casual. But the game doesn't get any harder to understand. The game is still played at the exact thing. The only thing that changes is 2 heroes can't be played, which is a very easy thing to explain. But all of a sudden, you know what's boring to watch? The same thing being played for 3 months. That is what is going to cause low viewer numbers. The game doesn't change. The fundamentals of the game doesn't change. All of a sudden, it just adds more characters that can be played. And that you don't have that problem with in a game like Dota, which is very complicated and has 150 heroes that you need to understand. Yeah, the complexity... Yeah, Kaiser said it the best way. I believe the game cap increases on the teams and not the viewership. That is a very good way to put it. It doesn't matter if the viewer doesn't understand how complex the switch that a team is making or the reason behind their bans. They don't need to understand that, as long as the game is still being played. I think it should be 2 bans each team, only 1 ban per team per section. I don't understand what you mean, sorry. I would just make a new meta where D.Va and Brig are banned every map. No, but then all of a sudden the team says, we're not going to ban Brig. The first team bans D.Va, and they go, we're actually going to play Brig. We're going to play, instead of playing D.Va, we're going to play a Wrecking Ball, and we're going to play Brig. Because we're not going to ban the Brig. People aren't just going to always ban the same thing. Because, guess what? In a matchup where I know I'm going to lose, let's say we ban D.Va Brig, and a meta comes out, when D.Va and Brig are banned, these heroes are played. I know if I'm going up against this team that's really good at that comp, I'm going to be like, fuck that, I'm going to keep Brig in the pool because we're good at Brig. And then all of a sudden you have that sophistication behind the game where you don't always have to play what the other team wants to play. Such a bad idea. The teams would just ban the enemy team's best player's best hero. Perfect! What do you mean? How is that a bad thing? Whoa, you mean that Jonak can't just play Zen every game now? Well, you know, that sounds interesting. I would love to see Jonak Anna. I think he's fucking incredible at it. but he just gets to play Zen every time because that's what the meta is. You're making it so that the best players in the world are those that are adaptable and can't be counterbanned. Because you're Jonak and you have an incredibly good Zen or Ana. Pick your fucking poison. Which one do you want to play against, right? Like, that's good. That's what makes players the best in the world. That's a good thing for the game, is it not? Try counterbanning Lyra, exactly, right? And then all of us try counterbanning Carpe, right? All of a sudden you have these incredible players that have these incredibly deep hero pools, and that makes them more valuable. Rather than these players that are only good at one thing. Ban Mercy for Custa. Exactly. You fucking ban Mercy, I'm out of Valiant. I'm out of a fucking job. I'm putting myself out of a job right now. And, like, but I still want to see it. Because I think it's good for the game. Two bans. Can't be in the same category. Yeah, like... That's sort of been like an argument. People are saying that you can't ban from the same category. I think that could be implemented. It could stop this sort of like stacking of things. That's a lot of red names. Would the bans happen prior to subs? No, subs, then bans. And I think that's better. I think if a team wants to put someone that is considered a one-trick into the game, the enemy team should have the ability to ban it. Ban the hero that they don't want to play against. Or have the option to let it through, right? Don't fire Custa. Sacrificing yourself for the good of the game. Exactly, I'm falling on the sword. Do you think hero protection and ban would work? No, I don't like hero protection. I think the whole point of this is to stop people from being able to just like have someone that just really good at one thing and the other team doesn't have a say in stopping it from happening. I think if the team, like, so let's say, alright, so let's use the example of Pine on Widow, okay? Because everyone likes this example. We got Pine on Widow. Do we ban it of the Pine on Widow? Or do we ban Brig that is overpowered? So, do we stop them from playing Goats or do we stop Pine from being Widow? Oh god, what did Jane say? I think bans are a dumb idea and I always suggest them are bad. Yo, you can have your ideas, but I think it's a fucking great idea. And I've been trying to explain this for a long time, and because I wanted to have this conversation because I saw the Reddit thread, and everyone was against it, and I wanted to know everyone's reasoning and actually talk to them in live time. And I think it's a good idea. I think it makes the game adaptable. That's hard, Kappa. I love the ban idea. Oh, right. Sorry, I didn't know you were trolling. Fuck! Debated. Yeah, I think it's like the best way for the game to move forward and to stop the role of just like meta after meta of people playing the same thing, of people only being able to play one hero, blah, 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 blah. Just got debated. Fucking Jane. Fuck it. What about hero protection or bans? That makes it more complicated. I think you're making the system more complicated than it needs to be. I think the simplicity of just two bans, or just like the simplicity of just bans is good enough for right now. Bamboozled. I've been done. I'm washed. If they put in a comp, what happens when you have a 3-3 tie vote? What do you mean? You only have 5 players. So let's say every player votes and you have a 3-2, but in the chance that it's a 2-2 split vote and one person doesn't vote, it should randomize the character they're done. That's how it works in Dota. The game needs something, exactly, and that's sort of what I said at the start. The game needs something. The game needs to change. For the game to grow and reach like a top level esport, I don't think it can do that in its current form. I'm pretty sure Overwatch is a 6-player game. Yo, did I just fucking... Have I been playing Overwatch for the last 3 years? Yo, yeah, so you can have a 3-3 ban, and it would split it randomly. Yo, I'm having a stroke, chat. You're trialing the ban system in a tournament in January? That's fucking sick. Because I heard that you guys were fucking around with it. But yeah, I hope it comes through. What are you planning on doing for your ban system, Jane? Are you doing like 1 ban each side? What are the rules? Don't make him do math. Yeah, it flusters me. I got confused. one global protect followed by one global ban. Captain's pick. Do you pick after the map? Yeah, obviously after the map. So you're giving it a protect. Why do you like the idea of a protect? Don't you think that allows teams to have like one strategy though? Don't you think that sort of enables sort of like the meta of like we want to play Brig? Or like we have like a Genji one trick in our team? Because people want to ensure that they can see Jonak on Zen. But I don't like the idea of being but then I guess you have to use your protect every time. I don't know. I don't hate the idea of a protect. I don't know. I'd have to see how it gets. Because I think there's obviously some... It adds comfortability. Telegraphs to the second most important. So the enemy team can ban. That would actually make it easier for the ban phase. Because what would happen is the first team protects. The second team protects. The second team bans. And the second team... And then the first team gets the second ban. And then that adds balance to the game. Because that means the team can protect and ban. And that adds balance to the banning system. Because that was the question that we couldn't solve of how you get the ban implemented. Like LoL Rainbow? In a way, yeah, it's like Dota and stuff like that. I like the way that sounds. Yeah, that could be good. I like the idea of how that balances the banning system. Because with one ban each, it's just sort of like the team which banned second just had an advantage. Alright, you say soccer? I say soccer. Okay, chat? Okay, before everyone starts writing, we're going to move on from this segment. I hope you guys enjoyed a bit of conversation and sort of the inside of what I think should happen. So, let's play some Overwatch.
Wobble wobble, motherfucker.